All right, hello again. This is Jeff Scott. I've been talking JavaScript with you using the Murox JavaScript second edition text. And I'm up to chapter 17, which is the last chapter of the book. But before I go into that, I wanted to show you something. And that is this. If I go out to the Murox site, you'll notice they have a book called JavaScript. Okay? Now, years ago, they had a book that was called jQuery and JavaScript, but they've decided to break that up into a JavaScript book and into a jQuery book. The reason I mention this to you is if I'm the one who, let's put it this way, there's a chance that this may be the book that you get in spring for the 152, 167 Ajax and JavaScript website development class. And if it is, and you look at the table of contents, you'll notice, and I'm not going to click on any of these to give you the specifics, but you'll notice the first 4 chapters in here are basically not a rehash, but they will go back and they will explain to you or re-explain to you some JavaScript stuff before you go into the jQuery. All right, but this is, other than the first 4 chapters, it's 12 chapters of jQuery. So the other reason I'm telling you that is you can buy whole books on jQuery. So this will get you acclimated or introduced to jQuery. It will by no means make you an expert. So our objectives: use jQuery to work with the DOM in your JavaScript applications. Use the jQuery UI, which is user interface, widgets, and jQuery plugins in your applications. Create and use your own jQuery plugins. Describe the use of jQuery and the benefits of using it. Describe the use of jQuery UI widgets and the benefits of using them. Describe how to find and use the jQuery plugins. Describe how to create your own jQuery plugin, including the API standards for plugins. Now, this is the jQuery website. It's jQuery.com. And even though the book is probably a good year plus old, remember how that looks, because if I go out here and I go out to jQuery.com, you're going to notice that it looks virtually the same as it did in the book. The colors, etc., everything is virtually the same. Now, jQuery, first and foremost, is a JavaScript library. It is many, many, many lines of pre-written JavaScript code designed to make your life easier. So it's easier for you because there's less that you have to do because more has actually been done for you. jQuery has cross-browser compatibilities. It has selectors that are compliant with CSS3, and it's a compressed. You can get it in either compressed format or non-compressed format. If you use the compressed, which you really should be doing, it loads quickly because it's small. When should you use jQuery? Well, again, jQuery was actually written to make your life easier. All right? So what I'm telling you is the reason that you might want to use jQuery is it'll most often be easier than writing it in JavaScript. So as it says there, typically the resulting code will be shorter, easy to read, and naturally cross-browser compatible. All right. jQuery is a subset of JavaScript, so you may have to use some JavaScript along with it in some applications. So the jQuery page for downloading the latest versions of jQuery. Let's just go back to where we were before. So we're actually at the page. Now, a couple things about this. Notice what we have here. Download jQuery version 3.0. Well, when we work our way down here, this part has recently changed, because when we look here, all right, the only thing they have here is jQuery 3.0, which is interesting because up until just a little bit ago, not very long ago at all, jQuery 3.0 was in draft mode. So you saw on there both jQuery 1 and jQuery 2. And the reason that I'm telling you that, all right, the reason that that is at least of somewhat importance is you use jQuery 1 if you wanted backward compatibility with IE 6, 7, and 8, and jQuery 2 if you did not. But the idea is jQuery 3 is going to be, at least that's the plan, used by everyone. When you download it, you can download it in one of two ways. All right. The first way is you can download the compressed version. And if I take a look at this, you might look at that and go, well, that just looks terrible. Technically, that's about one line of code, because what it is and what has been done right there is they've minified it. All the unnecessary white space has been removed. All right, that's what minifying does. And normally, that's what you'd want to have happen. All right, but if for some reason you didn't want the minified version, you could choose uncompressed. And there's the same code, but you'll notice white space has been added, etc. So if you were going to just study the code, you might grab the non-minified version. If you were going to use it in a website, you would grab the minified version. Okay? All right. Let's say though that for whatever reason you don't want to download either one. You don't want to use it. You don't want to use it, but you don't want to download it. Then you can go down and you can find what's called a CDN, which stands for a Content Delivery Network. And with a content delivery network, let's see. If I want version 3, let's see, is that still a, yeah. Then all I have to do is put in this line. What that does is it tells the system to go out to the internet and find that particular file and download it, bring it in as part of my program. The advantage is it's going to be, of course, a lot faster, it's going to be a lot smaller, and there's a lot less to download. The disadvantage is if you do it this way, you must have an internet connection. Otherwise, it's not going to work. All right, so here is where the author talks about the current versions of jQuery, what you want to use, why you might want to use it, etc. So as it says, version 2.1.4 is the newest version of jQuery. Well, that's when this book was written, but it no longer supports IE 6, 7, and 8. 1.11.2 is for older browsers. All right, let's just pretend we didn't even see this stuff, because what we're concerned with now is using jQuery 3. So again, you can download the minified version, you can download the non-minified version. After you've downloaded the minified or non-minified versions, you can change the name if you are so inclined. In other words, you don't have to use jQuery.min.js or whatever. You can use it, and most people probably tend to use it. But the point is, again, you don't have to. All right, jQuery, more than anything else, jQuery works with selectors. All right, so what this $ means in here is this means select every H2 tag. This means select the ID of email address. This says select the class, the dot of warning. All right, here are some examples of some jQuery methods. I'm not going to read those to you. But what you notice when you take a look at it, for example, the first one, as it says, that gives you the value from a text box. All right. The second one, in the first one, you're getting because it's on the right-hand side of an equal sign. With the second one, you're setting because it's on the left-hand side of an equal sign. But really, there's no equal sign there. So you start to look at this and you start to see how to code. Okay? Just like working with regular JavaScript or whatever, as you work with this stuff, it's a matter of getting used to it. So remember, what jQuery offers is a lot of stuff that makes it easier to add JavaScript features and functionality to web pages. It offers cross-browser compatibility, CSS3 compliant selectors, and a compressed library that downloads quickly. You should use it whenever it lets you do what you want to do. All right? It's somewhat limited. It's free, it's open source, and today it's used by 60% of the 1 million most visited websites. All right. Each version of jQuery that's available is available in compressed or minified or min versions and uncompressed. Again, you can also use the Content Delivery Network or CDN where you don't have to provide it on your own server. But then if that's the case, you can't work on it offline. When you use jQuery, the $ is used to refer to the jQuery library. Then you code the jQuery selectors by using the CSS syntax in quotation marks and parentheses. To call the jQuery method, you code the selector, the dot operator, and the method name, along with any parameters within parentheses. Then that particular method will be applied to the element or elements selected by the selector. Okay, to code an event handler, you code a selector, the dot operator, and the name of the event method. Then you pass the method a function that handles the event. The event handler for the ready event method will run any methods that it contains as soon as the DOM is ready. We'll see that as we go on. The prevent default we've looked at before, and it's executed on the event object that gets passed to the event handler when the event occurs. So here are some common jQuery selectors. Now where it says attribute, you'd put an attribute in there. All right, and that'd be all the elements with that attribute. You can say attribute equal value, all elements with the named attribute and value. The colon contains all elements that contain the text that's in that paren. Colon first for the first element within a set. Colon first child, all elements that are first children of their parent elements. Colon last, which is the last element within a selected set. Colon last child, all elements that are the last children of their parent elements. The not, which are all elements that aren't selected by the selector, and parent, which is all the elements that are parents of other elements, including text nodes. Here's some common jQuery methods. You can use val to either set or get a controls value, text to set or get element text, next, which gets the next sibling of each selected element or the first sibling of the specified type, prev, which gets the previous sibling of each selected element or the previous sibling of a specified type, attr, which will either set or get the value specified for each selected element, add class, to add one or more classes to selected elements, remove class to remove one or more classes. Toggle class, if it's present, remove it. If it's not present, add it. Each, which is kind of like a for each. In other words, it runs a function for each element in an array. Extend, which allows you to merge the contents of two or more objects into the first object. Hide to hide elements, show to show elements. Find to get the specified descendants of the selected elements. Focus to move the focus to the selected form, control, or link. Submit to submit a selected form. And evt.prevent default to prevent the default action of an event, which is what the evt stands for. So those are some common jQuery methods. Some common jQuery event methods include ready, which runs when the DOM or document object model is ready. Click, which runs when the selected element is clicked. Mouse over, which runs when the pointer moves over the selected element. And mouse out when it leaves the selected element. So what's shown next is the jQuery FAQ application that we've been looking at and we've used before. What this application illustrates is the use of the ready event method. All right, and you'll see that in just a second. It's got a jQuery selector that's just like a CSS selector, 5 jQuery methods, the prevent default method of the event object, and another CSS3 selector. The idea is, hopefully at least what this is showing you, that's the HTML. That hasn't changed much, but what has changed is this. The code is shorter and the code is easier to read. So if we look at this, the document.ready basically says as soon as the document's been loaded, start to run this. Okay? So this says find the ID of FAQs, and then each element that's inside of it, you're gonna work your way through it, all right, and either show it or hide it as need be. So this is going to basically fill up the, oh, I got that. This is going to fill this up and either put the plus sign there if it hasn't been open, or the minus sign there if it has been open, to either expand or collapse. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense to you. Next, they go through the email application that we looked at a long time ago, right near the beginning of the book. Now, if you're going to use jQuery and your own JavaScript, you must put the jQuery before your own JavaScript, because otherwise jQuery might end up overwriting something. You wouldn't want that to happen. So the jQuery itself is shown on page 569 in the book, and also starting on the slide right here. What this shows is how JavaScript can be used in conjunction with jQuery. jQuery is used for the DOM scripting in this example, and JavaScript for the logic. Okay, let's jump over to page 570 and take a quick look at the jQuery UI. And again, UI is an acronym that stands for User Interface. All right, so if we do go over to this, so I'm just going to stay right here and type in jQuery UI.com. What you get along the side here are, I think it's like 29 or something like that, different methods. All right, so let's look at one. Here's an example, an accordion. We've already looked at things that look like accordions before. Only one of them can be opened at a time in here. All right. What's neat is if you view the source, all the jQuery is right there. That's it. What that says is run the accordion method on the element with an ID of accordion. And just so you see this, I can grab all this code here. I can grab every bit of it, copy it to the clipboard. All right. And you're encouraged to do this. It's a great learning tool. So I can open this up, paste this in. There it is. And let's see. The only thing I would want to change is where it says colon colon here, or slash slash. I want to add http colon slash slash there. And I want to add it there. And I want to add it there. Oops. I've got two of those. Oh, I did that. There. So the only thing that's not here right now is this resources demo style file. So let me grab this, and I'm gonna save this to the desktop, and I'm gonna call it accordion.html. Okay, so there's all that. And again, there's all my jQuery right there. That's it. There's my div with accordion. So that's what it's telling it to run the accordion on, is right there, all that stuff. Okay? Now, as we come in here and do this, okay, as we come in here and take a look at this, what I want you to notice, all right, what I want you to notice as we're working our way through here is, okay, I'm going to come over to here, and the only thing I am going to have to grab, if I want this to look halfway decent, is this style sheet. All right, so I'm going to view the page source, and where we got the style sheet, there it is, jQuery UI. Oh, it's in here someplace. Looks like all the ones that are in here. What I don't see, well, let's do this. I should be able to run this. It won't be styled at all because I don't have this. Maybe this is another http colon// resources demo style. Probably not, but I'm just going to put it there anyway. And let me run this. Again, it won't look pretty, all right, but it's totally functional. So you can go out to jQueryui.com, and along the side here you can grab any of these. All right, so for instance, if I wanted to look at how to use tabs, I click on tabs. I can look at the example here, and you can notice how this stuff that's in here changes. And then I can come down to the view source, grab all of it, and copy it. That's all that has to be done. All right. So when you want to include the jQuery UI in the application, this is what you do. So the jQuery UI is free, open source JavaScript library that extends jQuery. jQuery UI consists of 4 types of features: widgets, themes, interactions, and effects. If you want to use one of those jQuery widgets, you code the HTML in the jQuery that's required. In the jQuery, you code a selector. Kind of basically it's what I just showed you. So they give you in here an example of the accordion, which is the same one that I just showed you. In general, if you can find a widget that is similar to what you're looking for, it's much easier to use that than it is for you to go out and build it yourself. Sometimes, though, you won't be able to find what you need. All right, so if that's the case, then we go on to the next thing. Right, come on. There we go. And this is what's known as the jQuery plugin registry. All right, jQuery plugins are JavaScript applications that extend the functionality of jQuery. They require the use of the core jQuery library, the jQuery.min.js or whatever one you use. Some of the websites that provide jQuery plugins are actually shown in your book here. If you don't find what you're looking for in there, you can just search through the internet. There's plugins available for literally, probably now hundreds of different things. Slideshows, carousels, data validation. Chances are pretty good if there's something in there that you want, all right, it's going to be there. More plugin sites. More. So on the top of page 579, and you also see it on the page right here, is they give you the general steps for using a plugin. Step 1, study the documentation. Step 2, many of these plugins, especially the ones that are the most popular, already have a CDN associated with them. So if you want to access them that way, you don't have to go in then and add the files directly themselves then. All right. Third, in the head element of the page that will use the plugin, code the link elements that are required. Okay. If the download contains an images folder, make sure the folder is set up correctly. Code the HTML and CSS as appropriate. And then write the associated jQuery code. And again, quite often when you write the associated jQuery code, there's not a lot of code to write. So you want to make sure that you include a script element for jQuery and make sure that the script for the plugin comes after the call to jQuery. All right, not including the regular jQuery file or putting jQuery after the plugin stuff is a common source of error. Some plugins won't work with the latest version of jQuery, so you want to take a look at it. You always want to take a look at this stuff and see how many downloads have there been on the plugin, etc. All right. Most plugins again must be downloaded, but some are available. Some of them are available via a CDN. So what's done here, starting on page 580, and just for a couple pages, is the author shows you how to create a carousel. So let's go and take a look. What I want to do is I want to go back to here and go over to chapter 17 and we'll look at the BX slider. Again, there's a little bit more CSS, but not really a lot. And when you look at it again, notice, as we said, you've got to put the order which you have to put this is the main jQuery file, then the plugin file, then if you have to do anything in order to call the plugin or whatever, put it in that order and you're best off. And here it is. So you'll notice it's a very simple little slideshow. All right. So the BX Slider plugin makes it easy to develop one of these carousels. The HTML is basically just set up as an unordered list. Right there. With one item for each slide that contains the images or other HTML. If the slider images contain title attributes, the captions option will make them captions. And the download consists of a JavaScript file, a CSS file, and an images folder, and you need all of them. But sometimes that's not even enough. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes, literally, you want a plugin, but there isn't a plugin that's out there. Okay? So what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean is sometimes you want a plugin, but there is no plugin out there that's associated with what you want. So what you do is you create your own plugin. The jQuery library uses the module pattern, meaning that a jQuery plugin augments the jQuery object using the stuff that we looked at back in Chapter 15. For many plugins, most of the code will be in the function of the each method. When the plugin finishes, the this object should be returned to the calling application. All right, and they give you some examples here. But you can create your own plugin that does anything you want it to do. And if you think it's good enough, you can submit it to jQuery. And if they think it's good enough, all right, then they might make it available for everyone. Some plugins that are out there are free. Some plugins that are out there are available at a cost. So they show an example here of a plugin I think that they want you to create. And notice as it says, when you highlight a menu option, how it changes color. All right. Sometimes when you create a plugin or your own plugin, what you want to do too is you want to provide options. So you code a parameter for the plugin that will receive the options that the user sets. To set default options, you use the $.extend method, and that merges the properties of the first parameter and object literal with the properties of the second parameter, which is the object literal that was passed to the plugin by the calling statement. So this was a very, very quick little intro to the world of jQuery. But what I like about it, and one of the reasons that I chose this book, so if you think the book stinks, it's my fault. How's that? But one of the reasons I chose the book is not only do they give an unbelievably good job of going through what I consider to basically be all the important stuff in JavaScript, but they give you an introduction in this chapter to jQuery. All right? And that's all I've got.